Okay, so we're here with the Heathkit model IT-17 tube tester. And my Heathkit developed a problem, and I have a very difficult time believing that I'm the only person who's run across this. There's a little Amphenol connector right here. It's for 7-pin tubes. And that Amphenol connector would not hold a tube when I pushed it in. And I started wondering, why isn't it holding the tube, only to take it apart and find out that all of the pins from that tube socket had been pushed through, and they were no longer in the socket itself. They were just being held there by the wires. So the tube would pretty much still bounce out. You could hold it in there against all of the contacts that had fallen out the bottom, and you could do a tube check on it, but not a desirable situation. So I ordered some new Amphenol connectors, because tube sockets, because this is an unusual form right here, an unusual form functionality here. And putting a different kind of 7-pin tube socket in there just wouldn't be correct, or it wouldn't be right. I'd have to drill holes and all kinds of other garbage, which I didn't want to do. Lo and behold, when I got the new tube sockets, they did the exact same thing that the other one did. I plugged a tube in them before I put them into the unit, and they fell apart. Brand spanking new. They fell apart right there on the spot. So I'm going to try and show you the problem here, and show you the solution that I came up with. So here I have the original tube socket, the one that came out of the tester. On the bottom of this socket, the pins are all put in, and then there's a plastic disc put around them, and then this piece of metal here on the bottom. When I go to plug a tube into this, we'll take a look right here. See if I can get this oriented right. Well, there it went. So I plugged the tube in, and you can see that everything's just, all of the contacts fall out. This little black piece that's supposed to be holding them in really isn't secure on the bottom of the socket, and every contact just falls out. Of course, they were being held in by the wires on the bottom of the tube tester. So when I got the new connector and I pushed a tube into it, it did the exact same thing. This bottom came out. This metal piece fell off of the bottom, and I was left with this and all of the contacts laying around, which, by the way, it took me a while to find them because they're pretty small. So my solution for this is, what I did was I took the spot where the disc goes and I put JB Weld around here. And I put JB Weld over here to the side. And then I put the contacts in, made sure that there was no JB Weld in the holes where the contacts go. Can't have JB Weld there. But you can put JB Weld on the rest of this, and on this little metal piece here, some in the middle and some around the edges, and over here where there's no pins at all, you can put some. Then put the contacts in and put this disc in, and then put more JB Weld over the top after you remove this little metal piece here. Put some more JB Weld over the top and put it in the center, and then run it all around. Now in the end, that ends up looking like this. Now you want to make sure that you're very careful and that you apply that JB Weld with a toothpick. All of these should be able to move. All of these contacts should be able to move. But that disc right there will be real solid after you JB Weld it. Let it dry for 24 hours. By the way, this isn't an advertisement for JB Weld, but boy, I'll tell you, that stuff is great stuff. Take your toothpick very carefully. Go in between the legs. Make sure that all of the legs can still move, because they have to move around when you put the tube in it. And then, when you're all done with that, what ends up happening is you've got a socket that holds the tube very tight, and the bottom of it doesn't push out, and the contacts hold real good. So once you've accomplished that, of course, you can take the other connector, the other socket out of your tube tester, and you can put the new one in, the one that you've revised. Now, that's not as simple a task as it sounds like, because there's a lot of wires on this. You can see this is the socket that was replaced. Now, I would suggest that you make sure that you keep track of how many wires are on each pin and what color they are. It's pretty easy because they're color coded: purple, blue, green, yellow, orange, red, brown. But keep track of how many wires are on each one of these, and then remove them, and then resolder them onto the new socket. You also have to pull out, there's a little metal ring underneath it here. You have to pull that metal ring off, then you have to put it back on before you put the wires back on. And that actually was one of the most difficult parts of this. I think it was more difficult than doing the soldering. But once you're done, you've got the thing back and functioning again, and this socket will work really good for you. But it's got to be reinforced because they just aren't built very well, and they fit well, but boy, they don't hold the tube very well. Just a minute here and we'll come back and take a look. So there you can see that it's held in there, and it's held in real tight, not moving around. The back of the connector hasn't fallen out because I pushed the tube in. So that's a pretty good fix for that 7-pin connector there. And so I just thought I'd show that. I'm sure that I'm not the only guy who's had that problem with those connectors. They're Amphenol connectors. They were made in Chicago, and boy, I'm not impressed with how they were made. So there's a little kind of a cheat that you can use to get that socket to work real good, and using JB Weld on the back of it, and only putting it places where it belongs, making sure that the pins can move along. That way you won't end up with all of these pieces floating around in the back of your tube tester. And here you can see it's working just fine. So this was a pretty good repair. And that tube's good and solid in the socket. No shorts, no opens. Good deal all the way around.